We see a comparison over here and the word like is used. So obviously, what is the poetic device that has been employed over here? It is simile, of course. Children who are really happy looking, they are all spilling out of their homes. They are not just coming out there as though they are spilling out of this basket. They are coming out of their homes. As the word smile, smile and smile, it has been repeated how many times? 3 times. And that is why it's an example for repetition. Hello and a very warm welcome to all of you to your prep school English classes. I am your English teacher, Kshama. Well, today we are setting forth to discover and learn more about our first poem from your textbook, Flamingo, named as My Mother at 66. No, not my mother. The poet is saying, My Mother at 66. Let's find out what is the poem about. Whose mother is it? Is it really the poet's mother that she's talking about? And see, what is she talking about her mother? Specifically, what is she talking about? Are you all excited? Let's dive in right away. Now, in this session, we are going to study about the poet as usual and about the summary, line by line analysis and what are the poetic devices that are used in the poem. So to start with, first up, who is the poet? The poet who has written the poem My Mother at 66 is none other than Kamala Das. Now, why have I written Madhavi Kutti then? Madhavi Kutti is her pen name. She is an Indian writer who was born in Malabar, Kerala. Okay? It is very proud to have a work of an Indian author, isn't not? Now, first up, what do we know about Kamala Das? She is known for her originality, versatility and the indigenous touch with which she writes. Now, what does that mean? Whatever that she writes has a native taste to it. Be it the topic, be it the style of writing that she writes, she is very much connected to her roots. Okay? Now, that's one thing that we know about Kamala Das. And her work, unlike most of the people's work during that time, which was centered on the colonial experience, her work was centered on bringing out the personal experiences. On the contrary to many writers who wrote it during that time, she wrote about the personal experiences of an individual. Okay. Then she wrote mostly poetries in English. When it came to English, most of the works that she did was poetry. And in Malayalam, her pen name to remember is Madhavi Kutti. And the rest of the works were in Malayalam, which is her native tongue. Then, what are some of the notable works? Let's look into some of the notable works by this poet over here. First up, A Doll for the Child Prostitute, Alphabet of Lust, Balyakala Smaranankal, My Story, Padmavati the Harlot, and The Old Playhouse and other poems. So these are some of the notable works done by Kamala Das. Now, what do we know about Kamala Das? She is an Indian author who was born in Malabar, Kerala, and she is known for the originality in her works, okay? And then about the versatility with which she wrote any subject she picked up, she wrote it beautifully, okay? And also about the native touch of writing that she had. Whatever that she wrote, it had an indigenous taste to it. And then about how she wrote mostly poetry in English. Later on in Malayalam, all the other works were in Malayalam. And some of the notable works of this particular poet also we saw. Let's see what sort of a poet Kamala Das is, what sort of poetry she writes, how does it impact us? Let's find out. Now, this is the first stanza of this poem. Let me read it to you. This entire poem over here, beautifully written in the free verse. Okay. The most notable thing about this poem before I begin is that this entire poem is written in a single sentence. Yes, there are punctuation marks in between, but you will see the full stop at the end of the poem, which means the entire poem is in one whole sentence. Let's start. Driving from my parents' home to Cochin last Friday morning, I saw my mother beside me, doors open-mouthed, with her face ashen like that of a corpse, and realized with pain that she was as old as she looked. But soon, now over here, what is happening in the first stanza? In the first stanza, we see that the poet is driving from home. Where is she going? From home, she is going to Cochin. Which is the place? Cochin. Last Friday, it happened last Friday when she was driving from home to Cochin to catch a flight. Okay. She saw her mother who was beside her. The mother was sitting next to her in the car. How was the mother looking? Poet paid attention to how her mother was looking. Dozed, she was sleeping. The mother was sleeping, open-mouthed. Okay? She is fallen so deeply asleep that her mouth is open. And what else do we have? How does she describe her? Her mouth open with her face ashen like that of a corpse. Now, what is a corpse? A corpse is a dead body. Her face is ashen like that of a corpse. Now, what is ash? Ash is a grey color powder, okay, which is usually associated with death. When somebody dies, when you burn their bodies, whatever that remains is nothing but ash. Now, her mother, who is sleeping next to her with open mouth, she has dozed, okay? Her face is looking as though it is ashen like that of a corpse, okay? Ashen like that of a corpse. Now we see a comparison over here and the word like is used. So obviously, what is the poetic device that has been employed over here? It is simile, of course. How is it looking like? It is ashen like that of a dead body or like that of a corpse, okay? Then she realized with pain. Now, right when that comparison flashes in her mind, she realizes with so much pain. Why pain? Because now she realizes that her mother is actually as old. She's thinking back to the numbers. My mother is actually old now. She's as old as she looks. How come I never realized? The moment of realization, looking at the mother who's dozing, who's sleeping beside her, brings so much pain to the poet. That realization, the moment of realization brings a lot of pain in her. Then what else? You see no rhyme scheme, particular rhyme scheme over here. Okay? The scene is set. The poet is driving from her house to Cochin in the car to catch a flight. We see that the mother of the poet is dozing next to her and her mouth is open. Then what else is there? Her face is ashen like that of a corpse. Okay? The face is pale and colorless like a dead body, and this realization hurts the poet very much. It pains her to see her mother and realize such a thing. Then moving forward, what does she do about it later? Put that thought away. Put that thought away and looked out at young trees sprinting, the merry children spilling out of their homes. But after the airport's security check, standing a few yards away, I looked again at her, wan, pale as a late winter's moon, and felt that old familiar ache, my childhood's fear. But all I said was, "See you soon, Amma." All I did was smile, smile, and smile. Now, what did she do about it? She quickly put that thought away. She put the thought aside. She didn't want to think about it anymore because it suddenly left her with a heavy heart. So she put the thought right away and then looked out. She started looking out, and what did she see? She saw all the trees sprinting. Now, trees sprinting, it's an example of personification, of course. She is associating a human-like quality. Sprinting is nothing but running faster, okay? Now when she sees the trees from outside of her car's window, it seems as though they are all running. Now, trees are, of course, inanimate objects. When she associates this human-like quality of running to the trees, which means there is personification over here. When she looks outside the window, she sees the trees running. What else she sees? They are all young. On the contrary to the mortal nature of her mother, the situation that she is in, she is a human and she is mortal. She is prone to physically, pass away one or the other day. But the nature outside, when she looks at it, it is young. The trees are running. The contradictory imagery has been presented. Young trees sprinting outside the window. Then, merry children spilling out of their homes. Children who are really, really happy looking, they are all spilling out of their homes. They are not just coming out there as though they are spilling out of this basket. They are coming out of their homes. How are they? They are all happy. Again, on contrast to how she felt inside the car, she's feeling painful about her mother's condition. Eventually, that is going to be the reality. She's painful. She's in so much pain. But outside, the trees are sprinting, the children are playing happily, coming out of their houses, right? But after the airport security checking, after finishing up the security check in the airport, what happens? Standing a few yards away, her mother has come with her to bid farewell, say goodbye. Then she looked at her again. Now she has to come back to reality, look at her mother again. And then what happened? She looked as a late winter's moon. This is again another simile where the daughter is comparing her mother, not directly, but she says she looked as a late winter's moon. Colorless, pale. She felt that she looked pale and colorless, right? But there was a familiar ache. This pain that she's feeling right now, the thought of losing her mother eventually, it feels very familiar. Why does it feel very familiar? It is because she has felt it before. In her childhood, whenever she couldn't see her mother, whenever she couldn't find her mother, this was very familiar. For you as well, when you were really young, one person you always wanted to have around is definitely your mother. And the moment you couldn't see her, you would all be afraid and really cried very bad to find her or to get her back, right? Similar was this ache that she had felt in the childhood. It is same. It is familiar. But then this time, as she is all grown up, what does she tell herself? She tells herself, it's okay. And then she tells her mother, all right, I'll see you soon, Amma. With that hope of, or the wish to see her mother again, she says, I will see you again, Amma. And all that she does is now she's a grown-up woman. She won't sit there and cry for her mother. With a smile concealing a lot of her pain, heavy heart, all that she does is smile, smile, and smile. Such a powerful tool is smile, right? She conceals her entire low feelings with nothing but smile, smile, and smile. Here we see the beautiful effect of alliteration. The sound S has been repeated thrice over here. Now moving forward, this is all that we saw. Let's have a quick recap if we have forgotten or missed over any of the poetic devices. Let's see over here. Her face ashen like that of a corpse, like that of a corpse. Okay, this comparison is of course an example for simile. Her face, how is it looking? It is looking like that of a corpse, like a dead body. Then, as a late winter's moon, I also brought your attention to this one. Her face is again being compared to a late winter's moon, which is pale and colorless. Then, young trees sprinting, of course, is an example for personification. Later on, merry children spilling out of their homes is an imagery. Think of how that would look like. It would look like kittens coming out of the basket, happy kittens coming out of the basket. Similarly, these children were running, spilling out of their houses, just so ready to start playing, right? That is an imagery, a mental picture that has been given to you to imagine. Later on, that she was as old as she looked. But soon, and looked out at young trees sprinting, and all I did was smile, smile, and smile. Now over here, the word smile, smile, and smile has been repeated thrice. And also it is also an example for alliteration. S has been repeated. It's a similar word. It is also an example for repetition. As the word smile, smile, and smile, it has been repeated how many times? 3 times. And that is why it's an example for repetition. So we saw simile, personification, imagery, and repetition. So with that, we finish our sweet and simple poem about my mother at 66 by Kamala Das, or otherwise known as Madhavi Kutti. It may seem very simple, right? But then it had a lot of, deep things for us to think about. Starting from the fact that most of you might be in your adolescence and you might be, busy in making your own world and moving around. But then if you tilt your world a little towards your parents, you also realize that with you, they are also growing old and they are aging. So wherever you are, with whoever you are, not just your parents, but also along with your parents, be it any elders, it could be an aunt, uncle, siblings, friends, anybody for that matter, cherish every moment that you live with them, and not like you don't have to wait until you reach an airport in Cochin in order to realize that people that are there with you right now might not be there forever, right? That's such a hard-hitting reality. So this could be your moment of realization. Go back, have a chat with them, spend time with them, have a cup of coffee, and that's all that it takes to create moments and sweet memories. Okay. On that note, you might write about your father or your uncle at 66 or your aunt at 67. I don't know. You can also create your own poem. It's not just about appreciating what you study. It's also about creating, right? So go ahead, tell me about the many perspectives that your lens of looking at this poem, and I'll see you all in the next class. On that note, see you, tata.